The UI in this game, in my opinion, is Studio Zero's best. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. My name is Ori, aka Jahbu, lifelong artist, lifelong gamer that loves to talk about the visuals in games. So before I get in and even start fiddling with the menu itself, let me just go over the typography. In other words, their skillful approach to selecting font faces that do an immaculate job of illustrating the theme of their game. I really love how much liberty this team takes with their typefaces. Typically, in most games, the UI is literally an afterthought. So often, UI systems will use only one font and only present themselves in one particular type of way. Essentially, in most games, the UI is just a means to an end instead of an actual character within the game itself. And when I say character, I don't mean like a character in your party. I am talking about a distinct characteristic of the game's visual language. Throughout this entire game, type is handled with the utmost care. So just on the main menu alone, they utilize 10 different typefaces, which sounds absurd, but it's put together in such a wonderful way that it actually makes cohesive sense. Using fonts to illustrate the theme you're trying to present to your player is very key. And in Metaphor ReFantazio, they decided to use a very bold, oppressive statesman font. This is a similar font that you find on the dollar bill. And I think this is an ingenious choice. Not only is this thick statelyhood font very large and prominent on a lot of panels, the weight of the font is actually very thick. I believe this was done to provoke authority. The whole point of Metaphor ReFantazio is becoming king. Becoming king against evil, ruthless clergymen and military men alike. So the fact that they went with an authoritative font is brilliant. One thing that I really admire about the UI, all of the UI in this game, is that it never stops moving. It is not a stagnant thing that is just thrown on as an afterthought. It animates at every chance and opportunity it can get. Whether you're on a loading screen or reading dialogue text, something is always in motion. And I like this kinetic motion that's constantly going on as you're playing the game. And in my opinion, I'll even go as far as to say that the UI outshines the actual graphics that make up the game world and the game's assets. One very prominent place this kinetic, chaotic motion is constantly fluttering in your face is actually the selector, the regular selector that you use to select which category or panel you would like to select. So not only did they utilize different fonts for each panel of the menu system, but the actual selector actually changes color as you're going through the menu. And this is a brilliant form of design because subconsciously we recognize colors, and the human eye is very good at distinguishing two different colors. So this varying color is very beautiful when you're selecting things in the menu. I love this categorically distinctive visual aid when selecting your menus. You can easily discern what's what. Another cool but subtle kinetic element of the UI is actually these little accents that we find all over the place. I like to think of them as more of architectural accents because it's something you will probably find on an architectural draft. Even though they're subtle, they work to help navigate your eye to certain areas of the UI that the designers want you to focus on. For example, the archetype menu is a sub-menu of the main menu. And how do you access that? You access it by pushing triangle. So when you look at these accent lines, they're actually subconsciously navigating your eye to the pulsating triangle of the archetype tree. And when you push triangle and go in, those same accents along with the authoritarian font frames the Da Vinci drawing of the human. Such powerful design here. Back to the main menu. My favorite thing about the UI has to be the lovely, beautifully illustrated portraitures, character portraits. They are simply stunning. In Persona 5, I remember them being my favorite thing in the entire game, believe it or not. And it's a similar thing in Metaphor ReFantazio. So the fact that they said, you know what, Jahbu, we're gonna double down and we're gonna put those illustrations that you love in the damn menu, and they did it flawlessly. So as soon as you enter the menu, you are greeted with a wonderful profile of the traveling boy, eyes glowing while still maintaining that kinetic energy from constant motion. And here's the part that I love. Each and every category is blessed with the illustration of a different section of our protagonist. So when you go into skill, we have the hand of the protagonist, still constantly in motion. And here's the part that I really adore about the way they handled their UI system. Every party member's hand is also illustrated and uniquely different from each other's. And I can only appreciate that. That takes a tremendous amount of work to sit there and draw not one frame for this panel, but multiple frames. I believe they're different drawings that are circulating to create this kinetic effect. Then when we go down to items, we have the waistline of our protagonist. Some people might say, well, that's kind of dumb. And some people might think this is just random, but it makes a lot of sense. Typically around the waist, characters tend to wear utility belts. Not really in this case, because our protagonist uses a cross bag. In equipment, they kind of do things a bit different. They decided to show the archetypes, which I understand, it makes a lot of sense because they consider archetypes as equipment, so why not highlight them in the menu? However, they still have that authoritarian font. And here's the thing, check out this font. This font is not just a font. No, this font is actually purposely designed like that to fit in the bounds of the screen. Perfect. Then we have party. Now check out this panel. This panel does the same thing as the main page. It takes that same care and dignity and illustrates our other characters in a similar style. And my favorite part about the party menu in particular is when you go and swap out your party, you can see them putting the portraits in real time. That is a huge boon in my opinion. I sat here for hours just going through looking at the different illustrations and seeing how well crafted and drawn they are. Followers is another one of those panels that I really love, but I kind of like it for a different reason. So the panel shows the mouth of the protagonist. So at first I was thinking like, man, that's kind of odd, but then I thought about it. Your mouth is the main way you communicate with other human beings. So in this game, you're strengthening bonds, and this is the menu that you look at when a follower is ready to have a conversation. So I think it is in fact ingenious to have this illustration accompany this page. Another thing that I love about this menu is when you click a follower, you get that pristine character illustration along with some beautiful typography that is very easy to read, very distinct in its retrospective category, all laid out in such an elegant, beautiful manner. Next up, we have quest. Quest, very simple. You use your feet to go from one quest to the next. Yes, you have to deliver something sometimes. Yes, you have to trek through many, many dungeons to complete these quests. And Atlas Studio Zero decided to show the feet of the protagonist, but not just the feet of the protagonist, the feet of the protagonist from his perspective looking down. And I believe this is intentional because they're showing that in order to complete these quests, you know what to do. Walk. Then you have the calendar. I actually really like the calendar in this game because it is very legible and very easy to read. There is the authoritarian font, again, followed by a very clean and legible, very important, legible calendar. The problem with a lot of games is when they have a lot of information to show you, they clutter everything, but they clutter everything haphazardly. It's not done with intention. Everything laid out on this calendar is done with the utmost design, focused on precision and clarity. Then we have my favorite menu of all, the memorandum. The memorandum, I think, is probably the most important menu because it presents us with the backstory, the lore. If you don't read the lore, you're not gonna get the nutrients of the story. You're not gonna know why things are the way they are. Case in point, when I started the game, I thought the different races looked a bit generic. I said it in my last video. Until I read the lore about each specific tribe or race, and it completely changed my entire perspective of characters in the game. One of the best things about this memorandum in terms of design, in my opinion, is actually the text that is native to this game. I really love when games create their own languages, their own scripts, and utilize them. For example, a lot of people don't know that the music in Nier is sung in its original language. And I love it when developers take the time out to create an entire language or an entire script library or font just to enrich the lore in the game, because this makes it far more immersive. In this memorandum menu, we see that script going up. And if you actually go in and you select the entry, we get a nicely presented paragraph on the left and on the right. Typically, we get an accompanying image. And I think that is fantastic. I've spent many hours reading these entries, and I actually had a lot of fun doing it, to be honest. And last but not least, we have the systems menu. Now, this menu is a bit odd, but I understand, it's the systems menu. So they show the Travel Boy's boots and cuff. I think those are cuffs. I don't wear these type of shoes, so I'm not really sure. There seems to be some kind of heel, which is nice, which is kind of lovely. Prince wore heels, so I think they're acceptable. So that is everything that I appreciate about the glorious menu system within Metaphor ReFantazio. If there are more elements that you noticed, please put it in the comment section below. Right now, I'm around 90 some hours in to the game. I feel like I have a lot of game left. I'm not really rushing, I'm taking my time. And I am glad that I actually decided to come on here and talk about the UI so it won't take up 15 minutes when I come back and actually give my overall thoughts about this wonderful game. So for those of you who already forgot who I am, my name is Jahbu Ori, aka Jahbu, lifelong artist, lifelong gamer that loves to talk about the visuals and games. If you are interested in seeing my work, you can simply head over to my website, jahbu.com. I just finished painstakingly re-uploaded all my paintings on my website, and I would appreciate a visit. And if you like what you see, don't forget to sign up for the newsletter so you can be notified when I drop a painting. And I promise I will not spam your inbox. I will only send emails relevant to my art. So until next time, my wonderful people, load up the comment section. Don't forget to like, and if you're not subscribed, subscribe, especially if you appreciate the visuals in these games. Until next time, one love, peace.